How's it going, everyone? My name is Steven Michaels. Welcome to the #1 Raiders podcast in the world. This is the Raiders Daily. All right, so I am here to be your guide, your therapist, basically. The one that is speaking truth to BS. First of all, okay, let's just talk about it. The Raiders lost against the Rams. We all know what happened. They lose. The score looks like they lose big, 33-13. It was a big hot topic on all of those talking head shows, ESPN, and what's the other one? Fox Sports or something. I don't watch it. I think it's the one with Shannon Sharp. I can't understand a word he says anyways. But, of course, they didn't watch the game. They just look at the score, and they see Derek Carr threw 3 interceptions, and they say, oh, the Raiders got blown out. None of them watched the game. I guarantee you. None of them watched the game. Because the Raiders didn't get blown out until the fourth quarter. That's when the Rams scored 13 unanswered points. And it looked bad because Derek Carr threw that interception at the end. But let's be honest here. The Raiders were leading at halftime. They had the right game plan, which I told you would be the game plan. The game plan for this game was to have the Raiders tight ends, Derek Carrier or Jared Cook, go up get one-on-one matchups against the Rams linebackers. That was the game plan. And to give Derek Carr some time because, as you know, the Rams defensive line is loaded. Well, they did a pretty damn good job, the Raiders offensive line. As Derek Carr only got sacked one time, and Jared Cook completely took over this game. I mean, this guy was awesome. Awesome. Unfortunately, though, the Raiders committed too many penalties. I mean, they basically gave the Rams good field position every time the Rams had the ball because of pass interference penalties. Then you throw in the fact that Derek Carr underthrows Jared Cook in the end zone. By the way, Jared Cook, he's so much taller than the guy that was covering. I believe his last name was Johnson. He's so much taller than the guy. All you have to do is throw it up. It's an easy touchdown. The Raiders are up double digits. Right there. But instead he underthrows it. Terrible pass. He threw 2 more terrible passes, as you know. But also, in this game, Leon Hall has a perfect opportunity to get an interception in the end zone. And he drops the ball. Doesn't come up with a catch. I mean, another killer. The Raiders looked like the Chargers in this game. They kept shooting themselves in the foot. Listen, I'm sorry. I think a lot of people overreact to week 1, especially this season when all of these teams did not really play their starters in the preseason. I knew it would be sloppy. So I warn all of you guys, do not, and I said this before week 1, but I'll say it right now, do not base the entire season off of week 1. If we're going to do that, if we're going to base the entire season off of 1 week, the first week of football, that means Ryan Fitzpatrick is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's better than Tom Brady, he's better than Drew Brees, he's better than Aaron Rodgers, he's better than everyone. Sounds insane, right? Because it is. It was a sloppy week 1. You cannot judge the Raiders off of that game. You just cannot do it. So yes, the Raiders lose, but guess what? Time to move on. I mean, Derek Carr had a bad game. Now it's time to see what Derek Carr can do coming off of a bad game, going into Denver and hostile environment, which, by the way, Denver just played their home opener against Seattle. So that's a good thing. It's not Denver's first home opener. So that's actually an advantage for the Raiders a little bit there. And Denver did win the first game. They beat Seattle, who's not a very good team. But I watched that game, and I can tell you this. Case Keenum, yeah, he'll throw for a lot of yards, but he also threw 3 interceptions. And their defense, yeah, they are awesome coming off the edge, and that's something that the Raiders are going to have to contain. Colton Miller Donald Penn are going to be two huge factors in this game if the Raiders want to win. They got to stop the edge rushers. Von Miller, and of course, they got Chubb on the other side now. You got to stop those guys because that's where all the pressure comes from. If you can stop those guys, I'm telling you, the Raiders offense will have success. And by the way, Jared Cook, monster game against the Rams. I think he will have another monster game against the Broncos because the Broncos couldn't stop a tight end to save their lives against Seattle. The Broncos had such sloppy tackling. And if the Raiders get a chance to throw it deep, you go ahead and do it because their safeties were out of position against Seattle and they had sloppy tackling. Like I said, the Broncos won the game, but it wasn't a pretty game. They didn't play extremely well. So if you hear that on these talk shows, they're lying to you. They didn't watch the game. Case Keenum threw for a lot of yards, but he also threw for 3 touchdowns. Demaryius Thomas dropped a couple passes in the first half. He did redeem himself later, caught a touchdown pass, I believe, but still missed a lot of passes. This team didn't look that great. They just didn't. So both teams, in my opinion, didn't look that great in week 1. But when I look at games as matchups, guys, that's how I look at them. I don't look at who has a better record. I look at individual matchups. And the Raiders, I think, have the advantage here. First of all, the Denver Broncos linebackers, like I said, they had a hard time covering tight ends. It was a mess for them. The Raiders have Jared Cook. Jared Cook's going to get open a lot in this game. And I really think he's going to be able to do some really good damage. And if, like I said, if Colton Miller, rookie, I hate it that a rookie is the left tackle, if he can, hold up on his end and Derek Carr has time to take some shots down the field, which he has to do. He didn't do enough of. He had a terrible game against the Rams. I mean, there's no arguing that. He had a terrible game, but he is the franchise quarterback and he has to bounce back. He has to show why he's the franchise quarterback. You know how you show that? You go into Mile High and beat the Denver Broncos, a divisional game. That's how you show you are a franchise quarterback. And like I said, it was week 1. All these teams were playing sloppy. To be honest with you, it's not until week 4 or 5 that I get a good grasp about how good a team is going to be. Because that's when they start gelling. That's when they start coming together. And the Raiders right now, they're mixing and matching. They just brought in Clinton McDonald and Jonathan Hankins. Jonathan Hankins, by the way, is a very good player. A very good player. Defensive tackle Justin Ellis for the Raiders went on the IR. They bring in Hankins, who everyone thought was going to get paid in free agency. His agent was asking for way too much money, outpriced himself, and then all of a sudden he didn't have a job, so he had to sign with the Raiders after the first week of the season. There's a lot of players out there just like that right now that are pretty damn good that the Raiders will probably bring in eventually, but they outpriced themselves. I know a defensive end who played with Washington last season. He visited with the Raiders in the offseason. His agent asked for too much money. The Raiders said no. Now he's begging to be on the Raiders. He wants to join the Raiders for vet minimum money. That's how it goes. Some of these guys outpriced themselves. So the Raiders got lucky with Jonathan Hankins. This guy will be able to provide a good pass rush in the middle. And I think that will open up more things for Bruce Irvin, maybe Arden Key. I wouldn't just say the Raiders defense is doomed and the Raiders are terrible. I've been seeing these things all over TV all week. Oh, because they got rid of Khalil Mack, the Raiders are going to be terrible. The Raiders were terrible with Khalil Mack. So what's the difference? They won 6 games last season. Yeah, he had 10 sacks. Whoa, great. they're still bad. And it's not like it's the first time a team let go of an awesome defensive end. The Patriots did it with Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones was on fire. They traded him to Arizona. The guy he's tearing it up right now in Arizona. But you know what? You know what happened after they traded Chandler Jones? And a lot of people were shocked they did it. They went on to win a Super Bowl. Because one player, one defensive end is not going to change the landscape of your team. It's just not going to happen. It's just not. You need a good quarterback. And Derek Carr has to be that good quarterback for the Raiders. The Raiders do got to get some kind of pass rush to beat the Broncos. There's no doubt about it. They do. They got to provide some kind of pressure on Case Keenum. They got to get him to throw some interceptions. Like I said, he threw 3 against the Seattle Seahawks. So that means this guy, he's off rhythm right now. Demaryius Thomas missed a couple passes, dropped a couple. I think the Raiders are going to attack this Denver Broncos team in a way kind of like Seattle did. Denver Broncos were very sloppy at tackling. Their linebackers got overwhelmed by Seattle's tight ends. Now think about that. By the Seattle Seahawks tight ends, they got overwhelmed by. They couldn't stop. Now you got Jared Cook, who the Raiders are going to put all over the field, by the way, this week. They got Jared Cook and they got Martavis Bryant back, which, listen, he's a big, deep threat. But either way, the Raiders, he's going to play Sunday, and either way, it's good for the Raiders because they can use him as a decoy. They can just have him run a simple go route, and if the safety bites on that, if he bites on Martavis Bryant and it's not there, guess who's going to be open on the other side of the field? Either Amari Cooper or Jared Cook. I like this matchup for the Raiders. I really do. But like I said, Derek Carr has to play like a franchise quarterback. The offensive line has to stop Von Miller and Chubb on the other side. Both of those guys are going to be, it's all about the outside pressure now, the end pressure. Last week it was all about the interior. Now it's all about the defensive ends. So Colton Miller, the rookie, is going to have a big game. Now, Derek Carr is going to get sacked. There's no doubt about it. You're going up against Von Miller. But he's got to hold on to the ball and just take the sack. And hopefully he doesn't get sacked 8 times. Hopefully Colton Miller can at least do a solid enough job to keep Derek Carr clean and give him time in the pocket. Last week against the Rams, a lot of people were saying, why is Derek Carr just dinking and dunking down the field? Well, guess what, guys? That was the game plan going in, and it worked. The Raiders were leading at halftime. It was working. It was after halftime when they put Talib on Jared Cook, when Derek Carr had to throw the ball elsewhere, and that's where he failed. The last game against the Rams, there was a lot of failures. Like I said, the penalties, the Raiders' penalties basically gave the Rams good field position all game long. Then Derek Carr underthrows Jared Cook in the end zone, which was stupid. Then Leon Hall has a chance to pick off Jared Goff in the end zone, and he drops the pass. So many bad things happen. It was like the Raiders switched uniforms and they were the Chargers last week. That's the way it looked. They self-destructed. They shot themselves in the foot over and over again. But if all of that stuff does not happen, guess what? The score's reversed. The Raiders beat the Rams. So I am just not on board with the sky is falling and the Raiders are terrible. Sorry, it was week 1. I'm not basing the season off of week 1. If we're going to do that, then we have to say Ryan Fitzpatrick is the best quarterback in the National Football League. If we're going to base everything off week 1. And I'm not ready to do that because I knew going into week 1 it was going to be a mess. I knew some of these teams did not play their starters. They don't have the rhythm. It's just going to happen. Week 2 is going to be different. Derek Carr has to step it up. These guys can beat the Denver Broncos. I'm telling you, if the offensive line can somehow protect Derek Carr, it's going to be a big, big win for the Raiders. It will be. The tackling by the Broncos, that's something, even though it's week 1, you still should know how to tackle. And they had terrible tackling against the Seattle Seahawks. They really did. I mean, wow. Justin Simmons, Darian Stewart, the safeties, I don't know. Their tackling ability's terrible. So you want to throw a slant to Jared Cook and let him go right at those guys. You want to throw a slant to Amari Cooper, let him run right through those guys because those guys cannot tackle. And like I said, you want to get Jared Cook involved in this game because, honestly, they couldn't stop the tight ends. They could not stop the tight ends. The Denver Broncos last week against the Seattle Seahawks could not stop their tight ends. They did have a good rushing defense. They pretty much held Seattle to pretty much nothing. I think they got 64 yards. That's it. But again, it's Seattle Seahawks, who I don't expect to be very good this season. So I think it's fool's gold. I really do. And then also, let's take a look at Bradley Roby, for the Broncos, the cornerback. This guy didn't have that great of a game. If you put Amari Cooper or Jordy Nelson on him, I think Carr, if the offensive line can hold up, I think he's going to have a big day. I really, really do. I think the Raiders have a chance here. And if they can establish a run game, forget about it. This could be a blowout, guys. I look at matchups, and when I see both of these teams, throw away week 1, parts of it, most of it. But when I see poor tackling, when I see guys that I know for a fact that aren't very good, like a Bradley Roby, and when I see that these guys simply can't cover tight ends, I know Derek Carr is going to have a big day. I also know Case Keenum's going to have a big day. I can guarantee you Case Keenum will throw over 300 yards. I can guarantee you that. But he threw 3 interceptions against Seattle. If the Raiders can get 3 interceptions, they'll win this game. They will. But I just want to let you guys know, that's my game preview. I really honestly think the Raiders can exploit the Broncos as far as throwing to Jared Cook, as far as the deep threat with Martavis Bryant back. And Raiders all week, by the way, have been practicing on getting Amari Cooper the ball. So keep your eyes out for that because they really want to get Cooper going. This is the game where they could get him going. It could be end arounds. It could be short passes, yards after the catch. It could be long throws to Cooper. But just keep your eyes out for that because they've been working on it all week at practice. So, I'm not, like I said, if you're a Raider fan, I'm telling you right now, do not panic. Don't panic at all. It was week 1. Now they're going on a big game, and John Gruden does not want to go 0-2. This is an AFC West divisional game. The Broncos are fool's gold. Case Keenum, he's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. The Raiders have a bad secondary. That's why I know he'll throw for a lot of yards. But the Raiders got to get some kind of pressure. They do. I know a lot of people are automatically going to say, Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack doesn't play there anymore. With Khalil Mack, the Raiders weren't very good anyways. So let's throw that out the window. By the way, Khalil Mack had a good game against Chicago. When Aaron Rodgers wasn't in the game, got an interception against Kaiser. People don't like to throw that out there, though. They just like to say, we got an interception for a touchdown. It was against a backup quarterback. But anyways, Khalil Mack's a great player. I wish him well. He didn't want to be a Raider anymore. That's the truth. So anyways, I like this matchup. I'm going to wrap up the show. Just to let you know, I like this matchup. And hey, if the Raiders lose, you'll hear me on Thursday. I will hammer them for it, But like I said, I don't like to judge a team until like week 4. But I also expect them to at least be 2-2 or 3-1 by week 4. If they're 0-4, then it's really bad. then, Jesus, you might want to tune in if the Raiders are 0-4 because I'm going to have a lot to say. But I don't expect them to be 0-4. I think John Gruden actually coached a really good game against the Rams. I just think the quarterback let the team down. And the defense let the team down with the penalties against the Rams. I think Derek Carr is going to want to bounce back against the Broncos. And I really think this is a good matchup for the Raiders. They got to silence that crowd. They got to make them silent. And by the way, I learned this a long time ago. I've been studying football since I've been 6 years old, people, okay? The best way to take a crowd out of the game is never let them in the game in the first place. Score touchdowns. The more touchdowns you score, the quieter they become. So if you just keep on scoring, guess what? The crowd becomes a non-factor. Now, my other concern is Marshawn Lynch. He doesn't like playing in Denver. So, that may be an issue. I really think the Raiders should try to get a running game going. I don't think they need one to beat the Broncos, but I think it would help a lot if they got a run game going. I think they should use Jalen Richard, throwing it to him out of the backfield. And I want to see more of Doug Martin. I want to see what this guy has. So those are things I want to see. We didn't get to see a lot of the Raiders in week 1. Mostly because they had a game plan. They didn't know what they're going to get out of the Rams. Now that it's week 2, obviously there's film. Obviously they can prepare more for their opponent. So, and then as week 3 goes on, you get more tape in week 4. You know what I'm talking about. So I think John Gruden's going to be a lot more prepared for this game. I think Derek Carr is definitely going to want to bounce back. And I don't like making predictions, but I'm going to make a prediction right now, and I might be wrong, but I think the Raiders are going to go into Mile High, and they're going to beat the Broncos. I think this game means a lot for John Gruden, and it means a lot for Derek Carr. But it's all, like I said before, I think I said it 3 times already, but it's all about Colton Miller and Donald Penn. If they can stop the edge rushers and give Derek Carr time, and he doesn't get scared back there, that's one thing I get nervous about, him being scared. And I think that has a lot to do with a rookie being his left tackle. I would be scared too, to be honest. But if he doesn't get scared back there, takes his time, guys will get open. Those safeties for the Broncos are not very good. They're terrible at tackling. And like I said, they have the matchups they want with Jared Cook. If Jared Cook can get one-on-one matchups with the Broncos linebackers, it's going to be a great day for Raider Nation. All right, everyone, I think I covered everything. Like I said, also, the Raiders will be bringing in more players as we go. The plan is, this is a TRD exclusive, the plan is that they are going to mix and match until the bye week to try to find the right combination of guys. Right now, they don't know, to be honest with you. They don't know which guys they have, which guys are great, which guys fit the best. They got Hinkinson, they got Clinton McDonald signed, they got Martavis Bryant back. They don't know how long they're going to have him for. He could get suspended at any time. Remember, they signed Brandon LaFell. We'll see if he ends up even playing. But this is the plan. They're going to keep signing veterans. They got this money now. They got, $27 million, I believe, from the whole Khalil Mack fiasco. So they're going to have money to sign all these vets, find the right combination, and then if they can just keep it balanced, if they play 6 games and they're 4-2, they're in good shape. Even 3-3, they're in decent shape at that point. So that is going to be the goal. Right there. During the first 6 games, they want to keep it up. Obviously, they would love to be 5-1, but if that doesn't happen, that's okay. If they lose 2 games, I would say 2 games is the most you want to lose, but 3 games is the worst case scenario. But they want to get the right mix of guys. They're going to bring in more guys. This team's going to look different. I'm telling you, by week 8, you're going to see a bunch of new players on this team. It's just the way it's going to work. All right, guys, hopefully the Raiders on defense can not commit so much penalties and those pass interference calls and give Broncos good field position. Hopefully they come up with an interception, maybe 3 like the Seahawks did. Maybe they can get some pressure on them with Hankins and Irvin now. And Carr is the franchise quarterback. That's why you're there. Go out and play like a franchise quarterback and shut up the critics. Shut up the media who covers you, who hates your guts, who hates your team. The world is against the Raiders. Even the people who cover them is against the Raiders. Now, yes, I say some things, but I speak the truth. For example, I think Reggie Nelson sucks. If someone sucks, I will point it out, but it was week 1. It was week 1. I'm not ready just to say, oh, it's over. Gruden sucks. Like all these other people do who cover the team. They cover their team, yet they're already telling fans the season's over. It's ridiculous. The season is not over. It was week 1. Let's see what they can do in week 2. Let's just wait and see. Okay? So, Raider Nation, the sky is not falling. Big AFC West game coming. Raiders versus Broncos. Let's see if your franchise quarterback and that offensive line can hold up and the Raiders can score points. Because if the Raiders win, guess what? The doubters, the critics, they're going to be silent. Or they'll come up with some other kind of excuse. Either way, I will see you next week. My name is Stephen Michaels. This is the Raiders Daily Podcast.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.